Cheers. Welcome to Adventures in Beer Selling. What I want to get into is not typically what I do on my podcast. Typically, we talk about stories from my time as a distributor and as a supplier, e-commerce, all the different facets I performed in the beer industry and beverage industry as a whole. And they're usually like comedic, fun stories, true stories, but fun stories that we talk about different things that I've done in the industry. But I just got back into the country. I just came from Mexico, and when I hit the country, all of a sudden I see the story about Southern Star hosting this event, and I felt the need to want to contribute some thoughts into the story. Not necessarily, I'm not interested in relitigating the Kyle Rittenhouse situation and case. People usually have these entrenched opinions about this particular case and other cases similar to it, and they have so much conviction that I'm not going to convince them in a YouTube video if I felt differently, which I have my own opinion about it, but it doesn't really matter. That all they're going to do is write their own comments one way or the other about how terribly wrong I am or how terribly right I am, and I'm just not interested in that type of conversation. I'm also not going to criticize or praise Southern Star's decision. I mean, their decision is their decision. What I wanted to do was give some insight on why the decision probably went the way it did, and kind of debunk some of the things that people are saying about the decision, who pressed the buttons for it, and just give a little bit of insight. Sure, I'll give a little bit of an opinion on some of it, but when it comes to Kyle Rittenhouse, just Google his name and read up on the situation, come to your own conclusion. I won't try to press you one way or another. So I really just wanted to make about 4 or so key points about this entire situation, and then present it to you all. And please drop some comments, thoughts, what you think about what I'm saying, and then we'll go back to talking about the crazy stories from selling beer in crazy areas, and people crapping themselves, and drunk people throwing up black vomit in parking lots because they've been drinking Russian Imperial Stouts. We'll get to all that later. So, okay, the first thing I wanted to point out was when I got back and I started reading up on the story, I saw that several people very upset that Southern Star decided to cancel this event. Okay, so let me give you this. This event was supposed to be a freedom of speech event, FU to censorship event. I'm paraphrasing because I don't know exactly what it was called, but it was basically like a free speech event. And one of their headliners was Kyle Rittenhouse from the situation that I told you to Google. One of the people on there was very upset about them canceling the event. Southern Star had initially rented out their building or their facilities for the event, and then according to their CEO, once they started receiving some calls and concerns from their regular patrons, they decided that they would not host an event because they are an apolitical company and they just want to serve good beer, and if their paying patrons have an issue with this, then they don't want to be a part of it. Again, paraphrasing, go read their statement, or I'll post the statement in the video somewhere. So one of the people that was upset said that the only reason that they're doing this is because a very large grocery chain that we are all familiar with in Texas, I would argue the greatest grocery chain ever invented, forced and pressed them to remove this event and cancel this event. I would say that is very highly unlikely due to my experience in the industry. I could be wrong, but the probability is very low that a grocery chain would pressure a craft brewery to cancel an event of some sort, even if it makes national news. If Southern Star hypothetically killed 1,000 baby dolphins, sure, I could see it happening. But grocery chains with their beer section, these are they're predetermined by sets. So all of the distributors come together, they submit sets, those sets are agreed upon by said grocery chain, and in each store they set the box according to those sets. And they're based on a few different things, but one of it is profitability, of course. If Southern Star is in the set and they're hitting whatever profitability projection that the grocery chain has, then it doesn't matter. They're not going to move because of one particular event in multiple stores. It just kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. Then again, I don't know if somebody here is from that grocery chain and they want to say, no, I was the one that told them to do it. Cool. But I would say that you're probably lying. It's not probable that they would pressure them because Southern Star would represent such a small portion of what they do, and as long as they're profitable, what sense does it make? In contrast, if they were pressured to do it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that because you have customers from all over the place, as long as that place is moving, they're going to keep them in the set. Second point is that this would also apply to the distributor in my assessment. I heard another comment that said their distributor pressured them to get a step away from the event. So again, it's about profitability. This is one SKU, right? In thousands of SKUs that this distributor has. I don't think one event is going to determine or make them call up this company and say, you need to move away from this. Distributors are about profitability too. As long as Southern Star is doing the things that they're supposed to do and checking off that box, that distributor is going to continue doing what it's doing. They're not going to call them and say, we want you to stop this event. Let's also take into consideration, and I am going to paint a broad brush. I'm going to stereotype here, but again, I mean, the probability is what it is. The majority of the people in the positions at a distributor or at this grocery chain who would make that decision, who would make that phone call, it's safe to say that their ideology, they wouldn't be pressing them to cancel the event. They're just not going to be super uber progressive people that are going to make a phone call to stop a protest or an event. I think that's the safest way to say it. No offense to anybody if they think that's an offensive thing. I mean, that's just the demographic of who runs these distributorships and stuff like that. My third point, now this is gonna slide a little bit into opinion, and that is historically, Conroe represents a kind of, it has historically represented an element that freedom of speech and censorship is usually cloaked in something else. Now, the people that were putting on the Kyle Rittenhouse event, I believe they're from Texas. I would assume that they would know this, right? Conroe has a very interesting history, and a lot of the things that they've done as far as like events and stuff like that. There's been a lot of just very alt-rightish. I mean, here's an example. You know, when I was in college in the early 2000s, they were putting on a free speech event in Conroe, and they were passing out flyers at my college. Hey, come down to Conroe, having this free speech event, and it was hosted by the Ku Klux Klan, right? Not saying that these people identify with that, but that's like not the only time that that's happened in Conroe. Conroe has a very strong history of racism and people, you know, protesting integration, all that stuff. So if you would know that, I think the general feeling is that you would probably expect there to be backlash, or you wouldn't choose that location. Not that Southern Star was like the heart of that, but like it just seems like you wouldn't choose that location if you're trying to emphasize free speech, anti-censorship. It seems like you would choose that location if you want to talk about free speech and anti-censorship cloaked in something else, because it would send a mixed message. Now, one could argue that Southern Star being in Conroe should have already known that and not booked the event in the first place. However, I can also see the concept of, hey, this is just some people that want to, you know, talk about free speech or whatever. And at the end of the day, they're going to pay you for your facilities. I mean, I think people will always do less due diligence if they're getting more money, right? And I don't know the background of that. I don't work for Southern Star. You know, I know some people over there. They're good people, the people that I know, but I don't know. But it just seems to me that in totality, people should have known that this was going to look a certain type of way. Whether it was that way or not, people would know that it would look a certain type of way, and the fact that it would be frowned upon or that the event could be canceled, I think they always knew that that was probably the most plausible outcome. And let me just point out too, this is not censorship, and this goes into my last point. Southern Star is a private business. They can do whatever they want. They can offer you something for a price and then return your money and say, we don't want to do it. So for the people on that side of the spectrum who are mad that they canceled it, who are threatening them and cussing them out and all that kind of stuff, this is how capitalism works, right? Like, the people where they receive the most profit from, at least in their minds, have told them that they will withhold that profit if they do this event. This whole thing that I've done, all these points I've made, the key thing has been in making profit. And when this group says, we are not going to spend money with you, and that's your consistent group, I mean, you're going to follow the dollars, right? You're not going to follow the group that could possibly bring you in money for this one time, stir up whatever it's going to stir up, and then leave. You're going to chase the one that's profit. And I believe, and I don't know. I mean, they say it's not consistent with their values, and I take them at their word. But ultimately, if the community that they serve felt like this was going to, they were excited about it and they were then I don't know that they would have canceled it, right? Because it's about profitability. And the people of their community, right, the beverage drinking community of Conroe and surrounding areas, has said that they're not going to put their money towards Southern Star if this continues, so they made a business decision. So ultimately, it's a business decision. It's been so long since I've had a sip of my beer. Hold on. So ultimately, it was a business decision. I think it is very ironic that the people who were putting on this event, who are so for free speech, and they're just so irate, and they are very much attacking of the other side, saying, see what they do, they're so, woke or whatever, these people will shut anything down. Well, that's exactly what they're doing. They are attacking Southern Star. I'm not arguing who's right or who's wrong. I'm not arguing if you feel a certain type of way about Southern Star. I'm just saying it doesn't make sense to attack them for making the very business decision that it seems like you made to have the event in the first place, right?
I'm 100% sure I made the right decision now that these people have shown their true nature. They have been dishonest with me. And, when I called the gentleman that was starting the rally and explained to him that we were canceling, and he's pretty much said, I'm going to use this against you. And he's doing as best he can to, use us to, what I see, further his political agenda.
Please like and subscribe. Check out the Adventures in Beer Selling podcast. It's a lot more fun than this conversation, but I think this conversation is important and fun too. So thank you guys so much. Be looking forward to drinking with you soon. Cheers.